Hey everyone, welcome back and thanks for downloading another episode of Australia's longest running basketball podcast. You're there with the Perth Wildcats right now, looking to put together a roster for this upcoming season. What's happening there in the war room?
Yeah, look, like most teams right now, you're just trying to figure out how to best add to the guys returning now. Luckily, we're returning a good group of players in the core from last year's team. So, as we add, I also want to be mindful is at this time of the year, you quite often forget about the guys that you've been around and how can we get those guys better. So, free agency has its place, but I also think you got to be mindful of the guys that have been around you and trust in what we're doing. So how can we get those guys better? And I still think the current group, we still got great growth in what we can achieve.
And you look at a few of those guys being added to the Australian Boomers squad for this next month's games in the FIBA qualifiers, and that's probably a fair indication of that, right?
Yeah, look, in my 4 years here, we've had some great upper echelon players, but we've also had great young players trust our development. And so between myself and the assistant coaches over those 4 years, I feel like maybe something that goes under the radar a little bit is what we've been able to do with the young guys that have come into our program.
Yeah, just doing a bit of a think about some of the things we could talk about today before jumping on. That was definitely one of the things that I thought doesn't get mentioned, whether it be, the development of Elijah Pepper. I mean, he's a great example. I think when he joined the Wildcats, not many people knew who he was, and there's probably NBL teams out there that didn't quite have him on their radar, but now he's a part of the Boomers program. I mean, Ben Henshall didn't become a high-level NBL player overnight. I think there was a lot of work that you guys did together on habits and diet and things like that. And Alex Sarr, I mean, he's a superstar in the NBA now. It is rough there up in Perth. I know there's plenty of fans and media that like to jump on you guys whenever something doesn't go perfectly right. But there's a lot of positives, I think, that have happened over the last few years that, again, those type of people maybe don't shine a bright spotlight on.
Yeah, sure. You touch about the youth, and that's youth is an easy one to measure, success and development. I also throw David Quer into that, but then other things that myself and the staff are very proud of is a couple of years ago, Bryce Cotton jumped from 23, 24 points a game to 28 points a game. Christian Doolittle has really, catapulted his game to a different level. Joe Lualachul last year probably argue that it was his most efficient season in the NBL. So I also take great pride in the ability to get the best players better and being able to try and get those guys to a new level. So always trying to get the most out of individuals, because if you can do that, that will leave you in good stead for your team being pretty good as well.
And I guess, Bryce Cotton, there's a lot of, if you look at the rumour mill online, the catch side coaches there, that type of thing, I guess what he's been able to do in Adelaide this season has been a bit of a narrative that's constantly probably circled what you guys are doing there. A lot of people between the Adelaide and Perth camp sort of comparing your seasons and their seasons and that type of thing. So I guess, looking at him being able to reunite with Trevor Gleeson and, perhaps look at what they might be able to do next season, I guess, is there a lot of that coming through at the moment in terms of just that, is there a lot of attention coming on that from the other side of the country, but I guess you're being faced to deal with some of that from where you are?
Look, I've been around the NBL long enough to know there's going to be narratives and different ideas thrown out about this. All I can worry about is the Perth Wildcats, and then when we get to face Adelaide, worry about it in that point in time. But there's no need for me to waste energy on what other people's thoughts are around those moments.
And because I guess a lot of people who are critical of the Wildcats, I think there's been a lot of good things there, but those I mean, I think it's always funny because they'll compare, let's say, the roster since, the success of the team since you've been there. For the most part, semi-finals team for majority of the time that you've been there. But to compare that to the championships during, the time that Trevor Gleeson was there at the club, and I've always looked at it from a bit of a, it's not uncommon to see people out there sort of saying like, oh, well, the team's not as good as it used to be or whatever else because, we're not winning titles or bring Gleeson back, or I'm not sure whether I think there was even a sack John Rillie thread on hoops.com.au forum for all those hoops nuffies that follow that or whatever else. But I think looking at some of the titles that were won there, the reality would be that the league at that point in time only really had maybe 2 or 3 financially stable teams, realistically, like whether it's Perth and New Zealand or maybe Perth and Adelaide towards those last couple of years, Melbourne even, those last couple of years. But it would be a lot easier for an NBL team to win titles at a time where they are the most financially successful team and they're competing in a pool of people and other teams that don't have those benefits, whether it be money to put to the roster, money to put to resources, facilities, and those, I guess, I'll say it, you don't have to say it, but those titles, I think, have a little bit of an asterisk if you're going to compare them with the titles or the league as it is today. But I wanted to put that out there and see whether you had any thoughts or feedback on that.
Yeah, look, any team at any level that wins a title, deserves it because, like the ultimate achievement and, financially stable. Not every team is starting the season with that as the goal. It's like an argument, right? If you're for someone, you're going to present all the great things of that person or team or whatever. If you're not in their corner, you're going to dig up all the negativity or why they didn't succeed. All I can do is show up, do my best, and let's get on with it. And as I've talked about before, I've been very fortunate to be involved in this sport at a very high level. The thing that gets probably, lost or whatever is like success is measured different ways. Obviously with Perth and their success, it's championship or bust mentality. And as you alluded to, the dynamic and the landscape dictates that a little bit. And all I can do is it doesn't matter who criticizes myself or the team or whatever, their expectation is never going to be greater than mine. So I can't get lost in the minutiae of all of that.
Looking at what's occurred within the team since you came in and took over and now, I guess, how would you summarize the team then and what you've been able to build over the last few years?
Oh, what I would say, my first year that I took over, it was a franchise that you look at that squad, they had tasted success. Tasted success, but I would say that the group as a whole, when you win, you need a core group. We needed to transition to I guess some youth or some growth within the program. It needs some freshening up from the roster, so it's taken us some time. Then you lose the MVP of the league, Bryce Cotton. That was a huge piece of that. Then the organization has the opportunity to reshape, retool, move on, whatever verbiage you would like to use. So instead of looking at the disappointment, I look at we get to reshape and move forward. And that's when I look at the likes of Pepper, Henshall, Aquera, Jaron Rillie, we got Cam Hoofner, all of these young guys. Then can they become the next core of the Perth Wildcats? Because you look at when the Wildcats were really successful, they had a core, but they also had a core of elite Australian players in the NBL at that time, like Damian Martin, elite at what he did. Sean Redditch was a boomer for a long time, yeah. And then you add in the level of import of Bryce Cotton. there's like, you go through the Sydney Kings roster of last year and why they tasted success. Like, what your own formula is, but you need elite level players at that time of their career. So we have an opportunity to build that and move forward through that. And you also have to be realistic of where you sit in the landscape as far as your roster build, and how do you get there. And like Joe Chul, Doolittle, Windler, they're all in great stages of their career, not only just for themselves as individuals, but for them to be around these young kids and nurturing. And then you throw Wagstaff in there. Like, you got an opportunity, but you have 10 teams that all want to be and only one team can be the champion.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
all we can do is our best in that atmosphere.
And at the moment, I guess, finalised on that roster, like, you've got a strong core group. We've named a few names that are already coming back, and I think there's an import spot there and a spot for 2 locals. I guess, what sort of things are you looking for when it comes to filling those vacant spots?
Yeah, look for me, and when you're the head coach, you need personnel, your style of play. It has to give yourself the best success, it has to mirror who you are and what you believe in. Last year, we were 10th in assists in the league. To me, to run good offense, to be 10th in assists, there's going to be some eyesore nights offensively. You look at our previous years, if we weren't number one, we were close to number one. So we need to address playmaking. I know everyone talks about point guard this, point guard that. Like, the landscape of basketball, finding a point guard and a big that is elite and a difference maker, you're just not walking out on the street and finding those guys. So when I say playmaking, that can look different ways. It can be a passing big. It can be a playmaking wing that has like, who that is, yes, like, go out and get a point guard, go and find... There's only been one John Stockton. You know, so like... And he never looked at playing in the NBL. So, like, finding that perfect piece is really, like, tough to do, let alone working in the NBL space and trying to find that exact piece. So for me, like, we need to add playmaking. We need to keep working with our rebounding. Like, our defense was come a really long way last year. Our personnel really bought into that. But if there was one thing, we need to address some playmaking ability within our roster.
I love the throwback to Gonzaga alumni, John Stockton there, JR. Little throwback to the college days. Oh, and then, I mean, a lot of people, media, people online, that type of thing, look at what happened last year and they'll throw around the Mason Jones situation and that type of thing. So I guess looking at that and then being in a similar situation where, you know, an import point guard, what's available out there, what do we need, and that type of thing. Like, I guess, how are things being approached differently, or was there any learnings from that, or what can you share?
But the learnings are like bringing a nice nucleus back. Like, what do we really need to add to this group? And, you know, when free agency first starts, you have a list, you have your A+ guys you believe in, and then you're dealing with European market guys thinking that they're NBA, all of that type of stuff. So, you know, we have our list, we have our ideas, but then reality starts to set in May, June, July, and then you have to be more realistic, and you lean on previous relationships, maybe someone you missed out on last year you can revisit with because their current situation wasn't quite what they thought it was. You know, so like, you got to take the emotion out of it and make the best decision at that time with who's available.
And we've done a few shows recently with a few of the coaches or the guys over there in Japan, and it just seems that league is not only growing but heavily borrowing or taking resources away from the NBL, whether it be some of the local bigs we have or coaches. Are you feeling that as well when it comes to recruiting players for those spots?
Oh, look, I would say like the biggest challenge for the NBL is just finances. Now you can take that as a pat on the back, or you can just feel like you're always taking one to the midsection, right? Um, but that's where you can have a level of disappointment of missing out on guys or whatever, but like go and find the next best guy, like the up and comer, or someone that mightn't be appreciated in, like, it's no use crying over spilt milk, like losing kids to college. Like what a great situation for these young guys to put himself in a financial situation that wasn't afforded to him a couple of years ago. Like, take the positives out of it. Like all of these guys with the ability to go to Japan and make their own personal situation better. Like, the part I think gets lost in it a little bit is, professional sport, what has to go into it to achieve this. Like, I'm all for people being able to better themselves and moving on. And the NBL does a great job of allowing people to put themselves in better situations. I just hope when their careers are done or whatever, they give the NBL the love that they deserve, that provided the platform for them to have the success.
And I mean, you guys have been, perennial semi-finalists for the last couple of years. It's come down to a game here or a couple of plays there that that's kind of derailed things from returning to the grand final. I mean, last year you guys were third best in defensive rating and not too far away from making it to the grand final, I guess. Actually, before I jump into where I was going to, one of the most curious, I guess, knocks on yourself and the team last year was the criticism, I guess, that you got over coaching the Boomers in the fever break. I guess, to me, we're talking about opportunities coming along, and that was one for you that I think not only would benefit you, but also those experiences ultimately pay dividends for the Wildcats, I would think. But I don't know, was that surprising when people came out and criticised you for that move?
Look, when John Rillie is the head coach of the Perth Wildcats, nothing like that can come across as surprising. But then I just go back to, like, if I buy in or spend time investing in that, like, I'm only being detrimental to myself and the team. People can have their opinions about it all, but I'm very comfortable with the decisions that I've made in that. I'm sure those people that felt like it was not the right decision, did they ever ask themselves, well, if I had the opportunity to coach my country, when it's been like a childhood dream to represent your country, like, are you asking yourself the right questions in that moment?
And I guess looking back, do you feel that played that had any impact on the way the season ended? Or
no, and like, as I said, we're always going to reflect on the good moment. Like, I was away with the Boomers in the first FIBA window, and look at our record after the FIBA window in November. Yep. Like, everyone looks for excuses when you lose, and that was for sure an easy point the finger at. But where I look at it, and this is where, like, after the November window, like, I got a young, dynamic staff that they're all superstars in their own right and growing coaches. No one said, oh, what a great job they did during the window to bounce back against Melbourne United and then kickstart our season after that window. Instead, in February, everyone thought hell was going to freeze over when we lost to Southeast in the first play-in game. So people just want to find what the easy thing is to criticize at that point in time.
I asked you earlier about, I guess, since you took over the team in 2022 and what you've managed to build now or how you've developed it before. But in terms of the criticism that you face and your methods for dealing with it, has there been a growth or development of strategies to face those? Like, have things changed in that regard, do you feel? Or
I think well, for me, you just double down in your beliefs more than anything. Like like I'll keep coming back to this. If I'm wasting time on that stuff, it's taking away from what I believe allows you to be great. Like when I was a player, if I had a bad game, I'd go to the gym, work on it. Well, it's the same as coaching. Like you watch film, you work with the players, you rewatch key moments or things where you feel like you could have had a better influence on the team to perform better in a moment. Because if, like, at the end of the day, if I truly believe we're doing the right stuff and I believe in what we're about, like it doesn't matter. And like the guy that criticizes me for whatever, like I've probably already thought about it. Who knows how many times.
Yeah. So yeah. You can't say it's totally unfounded, but they're probably not aware of what you're doing about it, I guess. Circling back as well, we talked about college a little bit and the opportunities over there, and with Ben Henshall and that type of thing. Perth has been one of the NBL teams in the media that that are most prominently kind of supposedly being affected by that. But someone who's played over there, coached over there, now dealing with that. Like, I just, as an open question, thoughts on what's happening in college right now and the, I guess, opportunities there and how it's impacting things?
Like what's going on? It's the moment. So you have to deal with what's in front of you in the moment. Um, the opportunity that is being afforded to so many people, and not just players, like the financial remuneration for coaches and the people that get employed through this industry is huge. Now, is there going to be some tinkering? Is it going to change a little bit in time? Absolutely. But like, think about your own workplace. Is it always evolving and trying to get better with the current structure? Like, that's life.
Yeah.
And these athletes, all they can do is do the best with the rules and the implications that are in place at this point in time.
Has there been any moments where you kind of see what's happening over there from a financial basis and then think about your time over there in Gonzaga and it just blow you off your seat or anything like that?
No, like I was born in 1971. I can only do what was allowed at that point in time. Like I had a great college experience. Like how can I think about what it wasn't versus what it was and what it's afforded myself and my family in my life? Like like yeah, just make the most of where you're at and what's in front of you.
Well, tapping into that a little bit, I mean, since you came into the league, it's changed, it's evolved as, it always does. What's changed and evolved over the last few years? And I guess looking at that, what are you planning to do differently next season?
Yeah, so like I think the game in general, like when I first come into the league 2022, versatility, length, athleticism, versatile. Where I think now what you're starting to see is the game, especially in the front court, going back to some more size. You're seeing that in the NBA, and NBLs are very, very good at copycat type of league. But I think you're starting to see a shift back to the front court. Like obviously, like the athleticism, the speed is evolving, and when you're comparing the 90s and 2000s, that's not even comparable. But you're seeing the game starting to shift a little bit more to where the front court is more on size versus the versatility, I would say.
And so do you, like, I guess, does that mean that, to the obvious answer to that would be looking at who's out there in terms of athletic bigs and being able to bring them in. But I
Yeah.
guess from a standpoint, that's always been probably one of the toughest things for NBL teams to find out there realistically because of,
Yeah.
like I sort of said, whether it's Japan or Europe, if there's a talented big out there, there's usually some much bigger clubs financially out there offering them a deal first. I mean, Australia's obviously got the benefits of if they're, really keen to get back into the NBA, well, then it might provide an avenue there that those other leagues might not. But how does all that factor in?
Look, I think one of the benefits or what's attractive about the NBL is when our season finishes. And I really thought last year, and I'll stick on the front court situation, is when you had the likes of Jesse Edwards, JaVale McGee, the front courts really took new shape. Suarez come back to the Kings. We got Jolawala Chul to, forfeit going back to Europe. So I think our calendar allows a little bit more flexibility with guys, style of play, and that's where you can see how we can grow or keep up with different leagues worldwide is like our calendar. But tell me the last time you've seen players in the front court of that caliber. You and consistently across the league. You would you'd have to go back. I was thinking, maybe late 90s.
Maybe your Dorge, Bradkey type of era.
Perth had
you're going back 30 years though.
Yes, where you go across the board in the NBL, the five become a really pivotal spot as far as you better have physicality and size, otherwise you're going to get manhandled on a lot of nights.
And I wanted to tap into some of the players and their development that we spoke about a bit earlier. Elijah Pepper, for example. I mean, in a year or two, this guy's gone from, like I said, almost unknown to a member of the Boomers squad. And although, there might be, again, plenty of naysayers out there. There might be some naysayers that think this is just, qualifiers, or it's just a game against Guam or whatever it might be. But I honestly think, depending on how things, fall together, that both Elijah and Ben Henshall have a really good chance of making that roster, because they do possess some of the skill sets that even, with majority of our NBA guys on the squad, the team does lack a little bit. And, I'm excited to see what they can do in this series, but your thoughts on, I guess, their development over the last year and being a part of that team?
Yeah, obviously I have a level of biasness, but shooting carries over to any level. So if you can put yourself in the elite shooter category, you're going to give yourself a great opportunity, because if you can put the ball in the hole from the three at a high level, you just create so much opportunity for the other guys on the floor that their skill set, they need the spacing on the floor. So what you're talking about with Pepper and Henshall, they certainly have that. Pepper's growth in the professional or the NBL, his rookie year, he had a good rookie year, but I think he figured out, at the pro level, you always want to get better as a player, but what's your elite skill? And the more often you can do your elite skill, the more success you're going to have, because you're playing against good players. And you can see with Henshall, that's coming along nicely. With his ability and consistency to score, and then his playmaking from there. But his growth has been at the defensive end, and internationally, if you want to be a guard, you got to have the ability to defend guys 6'2" to 6'7" with some of the top international teams. So Henny's made great strides in that. So I'm excited to see where their development and their continued growth gets them as far as the international landscape.
Because, whether it's Henny or Pepper, either or, you look at that roster on the Boomers, assuming that, most of the guys that are going to be, that are, considered for the team are going to make it. There's going to be a lot of pick and roll there with Josh and Jock, and then there's going to be a lot of guys looking for open looks at the 3-point line. And even though we've got some amazing NBA players, there's not a lot of those that are locked in as 3 and D players. We've got some elite defenders like Dante Exum, and then we've got some great shooters like Patty Mills. But to have someone who's really in their prime and elite at both ends, the list of guys isn't that long. And I think, like I said, I think that both of them, depending on how things fall and how that roster comes together, that both of those guys have a pretty decent chance of making the main squad.
Yeah, Like absolutely, but like the continued growth, and look, can you go from a 37% 3-point shooter to a 43, 44? Like when I sit down with players and they're going through it, I said, like, do you think we'd be having this conversation if you could shoot at 43% from three? And the answer's no. Well, like, are you working at the level that'll allow you to get to that? And to put yourself into the elite category, whatever that is for you, like, are you prepared to put the work in and not get distracted with all the other things that can come along as you're trying to?
And I mean, it's up to you whether you sort of lay out any actual conversations, but just thinking about how you approach that with guys, lay it out on the table, I guess, try and get buy-in. Like, what does that look like? Can you share?
So it's a collaboration with a player. Like, it doesn't matter how much I want it. If the player doesn't have it, it's not going to ever get to fruition. So there has to be a level of collaboration. If their idea and my idea is miles apart, like, you got to find middle ground. Quite often I feel players are trying to solve the world's problems instead of just one or two problems, because at different levels, everyone says, oh, you need to get better at everything. You can't be good at everything. So what can you be really great at so you separate yourself? Like referring to the podcast world, I was never going to be elite at podcasting, so I needed to move on and close that door. So that's where my conversations go, whether it's shooting, rebounding, defense, whatever it is. How do we get you elite in that? And that's where the collaboration needs to come. And once they tick off those, we're like, what's the next thing we're working on? But you got to get buy-in from everyone, but it also has to be realistic. Like, I think that's part of it where the recipe gets a little unbalanced is, are you being realistic or what's attainable?
What do you think? Again, you don't have to share any exact stories unless you want to, but to think about the, I guess, whether it's percentage of guys that kind of buy into that, or, the things that we're talking about to be, to focus on those things that make you elite, that type of work is what is ultimately going to probably prove to be what's going to get you to the Boomers squad or the NBA more often than not. It's probably going to be directly linked to your income and how much you earn over your career. Yep. But just curious to see, from you're having these conversations. Like, is that something that they're generally aligned with, or does it take a little bit of convincing?
Oh, like there's a level of convincing. Like, let's stick with shooting, 3-point shooting. Now I'll dig into, when I say I'll dig into someone's career, I'll go back into their junior career,
Yep.
So if you think you're going to make the NBA and don't have great positional size, you're not the greatest athlete, in your career you've been a 35% 3-point shooter, but that needs to be your elite skill in the NBA. How all of a sudden do you think NBA people are going to get excited if you're a career 35% and your work ethic stays at the same level? How do you think that that's magically going to get to 42 to 45%? Impossible.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Absolutely impossible. So what's going to change so you get what you're looking for? Or, okay, let's be honest, it's going to be really hard to work in that area with your work ethic, with, unfortunately, your physical limitations and all of that type of stuff. So how can you message it so it's believable, but they also can see, like, it takes a lot of work to get where you want to get to. Are you obsessed?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Are you obsessed? If I call you up on a Friday night at 11 and go, hey, do you want to go and hang out? Yep. Well, you going and working out at 6 a.m. to get up some shots, probably not going to happen. Or if it does, it's going to be at a poor level.
Yep. Yeah, there's some Joe Alexander that played a few years in the NBA. I've fallen into a bit of a hole there, looking at some of his social media posts. He's been pretty active at the moment, but just to look at a guy like him, where he basically sort of he has gone through what he did from a 12-year-old onwards, and you look at Joe Alexander, and I mean, you don't look at him thinking it's Michael Jordan or anything like that, or they're putting countless hours, but this is a guy that never got any big offers from college and had a pretty decent NBA career, and literally, like, the guy was working out at least 3 to 4 hours pretty much 5 days a week since he was 12 years old. And I think that type of dedication, being what a large percentage of the guys playing in the NBA have to do and go through, is probably lost on some people, right?
It gets lost, but yeah. Where I'm wiser these days is, like, your body of work. Like, is it meaningful work, or is it just busy work where, the kid next door could be doing the busy work as well? Like, are you doing work that is going to be advantageous? Yeah. I think that's the important piece to it. Like, is it truly going to be beneficial to the end result? And the sooner you figure out what that balance is, I think you got a better chance of striving and reaching your goals there.
Because there's heaps of junior coaches and that as well, or parents of kids and that type of thing, where they'll be like, oh, well, little Johnny's out there and, we're working on him shooting, 100 shots before he comes inside or something like that. But again, it's the same sort of thing where that might be happening, but is it just him just wandering out there and lackadaisically throwing up 100 shots? Or is it, 100 shots from, the key areas that he needs to work on, or, dribble pull-ups, or, is he catching it actually in rhythm and game time stuff, or is he just heaving them up there, and people wondering why, but he's doing 100 shots, or then it's not exactly apples and apples, is it?
No, now the other thing that I truly believe in is there has to be a level of joy or fun to what you're doing. If there's not that, you can't achieve like what you're trying to get to. The other part, and talk, like, you think about a junior in Australian basketball, they'll play club basketball.
Yep.
And if they're at a good level, they'll do some type of representation. They're in some kind of advanced, program, ITP, or, sorry about the letters. I'm not up to
They change too often for me too, yeah.
Then they're playing for their state team. Like, at any time, they could have 4, maybe 5 coaches putting their input or pulling them in different, oh, you need to be a part of our program. You don't need that program. Like, I think sometimes we maybe muddy the waters for like a 14-year-old versus like, are they enjoying what they're doing, and is there just a nice progression to what they're going about? Like anything you do, you got to have an element of joy in it. Otherwise, it's going to be like pulling teeth, and that's where you see burnout and all of that type of stuff with different, sporting organizations.
If I circle back, I guess, to the team and last year to kind of start to wrap things up, you said in late 6 months ago, roughly, a little towards the end of 2025, that I remember you saying something in one of the interviews about how you pay zero attention to the outside noise and no one's expectations are greater than you when it comes to the team. But sitting down and having a look at the season now, it's not only finished, but you've had a bit of time to talk, discuss, think through what went well and what didn't. I guess, how would you assess last season?
Yeah, like last year was great growth for the team and the organization. Like we got a new owner. We moved on from a superstar of the club and the league. Like, not every team deals with that, let alone in a decade ever in their franchise. Yeah. So the club had to deal with that. So, like last year, we lost 5 one-point games. Okay? You can look at that a million ways. I look at that as our group, and we're bringing most of our group back. They got to live in those moments and feel those moments. Guys got, like, talk about Christian Doolittle. Like, he took a lot of game-winning moments he stepped up every time and took that opportunity upon himself. There's a lot of good to come out of those moments. Versus like, well, is it gauged as success or failure? Like, you got to live in moments before you can like truly taste success and be consistent in those moments. So I look at that like our growth of guys, our growth of our veterans, Dylan Windler coming back after being in the NBL, like a lot of good has come out of last year. Like disappointing. Like there's not a day goes by I don't think about like one of the results. Like I reflect on our first ever home game last year against Tasmania. We foul as the clock's winding down. Like, how can we avoid these moments? You know, like, so what anyone else says, like, great, have your opinion, but I'll like, you're not on the level like I'm trying to digest all of these moments in.
When I have the guys on the show, I always kind of have a bit of a look at not only what was the highlight of the year, but I guess some of the hardest moments or the learning moments or things that you caught yourself doing that you've since decided to pivot away from to get better results. Is there anything like that for you that you can think of?
Oh, like last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think most road wins in an NBL season, or you know, like our ability to go on the road last year, you know, to do that, you know, a lot of talk around how Perth travels and how like our group just went on about their business and just the way we competed consistently on the road gave me a lot of hope, because in the playoffs you got to have the ability to win on the road. We had an opportunity game one against the Sydney Kings to win on the road, you know, so that was the thing that, you know, I reflect on and feel very good about the way we competed on the road.
And what about, I guess, maybe some of the moments that were the hardest, or that you sort of, you know, you've self-corrected upon looking at, anything like that you can think of?
Oh, look, like right now, our staff, I give our coaching staff projects where we break down situations or parts of the game where we could maybe look at a different strategy. Could we execute? Do we need to look like, do you want to foul? Don't you want to foul? Like, to give an example, like everyone goes, oh, foul because you got team fouls to use at the end of the quarter. Well, I can tell you, when we just flat defended a team at the end of a quarter, it was 0.72 points per possession, which is like a really good defensive rating.
Yeah. Run and like run and jump type of stuff, you mean, or?
No, just man to man. We're just defending. Yeah. And if we had two team fouls, so you know how some teams like to foul, make you take it out on the side.
Yep.
I'm a straight up defend at the end of the clock. Statistically, 0.72 points in those possessions.
Yeah, wow.
Where, you know, so like these are the types of things, like what's your success rate in the first play of the game? Instead of like trying to dissect a million things, what are a couple things we can just do a little bit better? So like, you know what, I got 7 or 8 different guys on staff doing like really specific projects, and can we just tinker with those? Or do we want to look at our philosophy, like 2 for 1? Like a 2 for 1 is what's the shot quality? You know, versus just saying, oh, we got a shot up because we created a 2 for 1. Well, what happens when you don't convert on either one of those and the opposition scores on theirs? Like the momentum going into halftime all of a sudden is lost. So just like really looking over those and going, are we approaching these in the right moments? Could we do a better job? Because over the course of a season, these situations present themselves enough.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to think about. But yeah, well, JR, like I said, the top three in defensive stats last year, 11-5 on the road, like you mentioned there. You got a team where 70% of the roster's probably coming back and all hungrier and keyed in. A couple of guys there stepping into the Boomers squad. There's a lot of good signs there for Perth in NBL27, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, look, really, really excited about our group coming back. Enjoyable to be around day to day, which I think is underappreciated when you enjoy walking in and being around the guys. You can only grow and hopefully get the most out of your group. So, really looking forward to it. But we need to just take a couple more steps and we'll be in really good shape.
Oh, yeah, it's always a privilege to have you on the show, mate. You're a legend. I've told you this before, but I used to rock around with a shaved head when I was 14 years old for no other reason than I saw a flashy guard up there in Brisbane doing the same and thought it might help my basketball ability. But mate, I always love your work. Love watching you guys play, and really looking forward to the season this year down there at Perth.
No, I appreciate it. You just need to find the right barber then.
Yeah, it's called a razor. All right, mate. You have a good day, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.